breaking news to tell you about involving actress and comedian Tiffany Haddish. She was arrested this morning for
Relevance after a new complaint is reported in Dolton.
And Elizabeth Matthews is standing by with more on what we know so far.
Tiffany Henyard's tumultuous political career took a dramatic turn when FBI agents arrested her during a municipal council meeting in Dolton, Illinois. She faces charges of embezzling $2 million in public funds, a scandal that has left the community in shock. Rumors of corruption and misconduct had been swirling for months, but the sudden arrest confirmed residents' worst fears. Adding to the turmoil, two key political positions were mysteriously altered, further fueling speculation. With a staggering $12 million in assets at stake, the scandal has severely damaged Henyard's reputation and shaken the town's trust in its leadership to the core.
The Dolton Mayor and Thornton Township Supervisor, a former employee of Henyard, says she was sexually assaulted by a Dolton trustee during a Vegas trip last year.
Tiffany Henyard's controversial political career in Dolton, Illinois, has reached a stunning new low, shocking both her critics and the community she was elected to serve. Once hailed as the super mayor who would rescue the financially struggling village, Henyard now faces accusations of embezzling $2 million in taxpayer funds, a scandal that has plunged Dolton into crisis and drawn the attention of the FBI in one of the town's largest corruption investigations to date. For years, rumors of misconduct surrounded Henyard. Initially praised for her ambition, her tenure soon became tainted by allegations of financial mismanagement and theft. The funds she allegedly diverted were intended to repair Dolton's crumbling infrastructure, roads, water systems, and essential public services that desperately needed attention. Instead, those funds were reportedly funneled into Henyard's personal accounts, a betrayal that has devastated residents who had once placed their hopes in her leadership. Public outrage is palpable. She should be fixing the streets, not lining her pockets, one frustrated resident remarked, echoing the anger of many. The stolen $2 million, which could have revitalized the community, has instead left Dolton's residents feeling both financially robbed and emotionally betrayed. Further fueling their frustration are reports suggesting Henyard used the stolen funds to bankroll a lavish personal lifestyle while the town's infrastructure continued to deteriorate. As the FBI investigation deepens, new revelations indicate that the scale of Henyard's alleged crimes may be far greater than initially suspected. Evidence suggests a deliberate scheme to misappropriate funds, further eroding public trust. Residents, once questioning how this could happen, are now left wondering how their leader could be so reckless with the trust placed in her. Despite the overwhelming evidence against her, Henyard has defiantly announced her intention to seek re-election, a move that has only intensified public outrage. Her decision to campaign while facing serious criminal accusations has led many to believe she is either unwilling or incapable of grasping the severity of her situation, let alone the needs of the community she was elected to serve. Adding to her troubles, Henyard is now embroiled in a separate legal battle over an unpaid rent dispute with her landlord. Despite reportedly earning a six-figure salary, she has allegedly failed to pay rent since August. Her landlord, Jeanette Ho, expressed deep disappointment, particularly after Henyard reportedly changed the locks on her rental unit to avoid eviction. This incident has only reinforced the growing perception that Henyard is incapable of managing both public and personal financial responsibilities. The stark contrast between Henyard's alleged mismanagement of public funds and her own financial instability has further eroded confidence in her leadership. How can a mayor who can't even pay her rent be trusted to oversee a town in financial distress? One resident questioned. Her personal financial troubles mirror the broader issues of corruption and poor decision-making that have plagued her administration. Despite mounting public anger, Henyard remains defiant, continuing to make decisions that further alienate her from the community. Her bid for re-election, amid allegations of theft and mismanagement, is seen by many as a desperate and tone-deaf attempt to cling to power as the investigation unfolds. It has become increasingly clear that Henyard's time in office is nearing its end. Trust in her leadership has evaporated, And what began as a series of questionable decisions has spiraled into a full-blown crisis, one that has left Dolton in turmoil and Henyard's political future hanging by a thread. The community now faces the difficult task of rebuilding trust in its local government. But for many residents, the betrayal they have experienced will not be easily forgotten. With Henyard's reputation in ruins, the road to recovery for Dolton will be long and arduous.
Dolton has had nothing to say in person about the investigation into village finances until today.
I understand everybody want me to be the target. I understand everybody want me to be the bad guy for everything that goes on in the village, but that's not the truth.
Tiffany Henyard's once promising political career has devolved into a chaotic and deeply troubling spectacle. What initially seemed like ambitious leadership in Dolton, Illinois, has instead become a stage for erratic behavior and blatant disregard for authority. In recent months, Henyard's actions have shocked both residents and political observers, as her leadership appears more focused on personal drama than effective governance. One of the most startling developments occurred when the Board of Trustees removed promotional banners celebrating her self-proclaimed title of Super Mayor. Rather than accepting this decision with grace, Henyard erupted in outrage, going so far as to call the police and demand that the workers responsible be arrested for stealing government property. This highly unusual reaction raised concerns about her priorities, with one worker describing her behavior as alarming, noting that she seemed more interested in using her office for personal gain than in serving the community. As tensions escalated, Henyard's leadership continued to spiral. Township Supervisor Mike called for a special meeting to approve events Henyard wanted funded, but not a single trustee showed up, forcing the meeting's abrupt cancellation. This blatant act of defiance highlighted the growing rift between Henyard and the very officials she was supposed to be working alongside. The more isolated she became, the more she seemed fixated on controlling the public spotlight rather than addressing the town's pressing needs. Public meetings, meant to focus on the town's governance, deteriorated into chaotic spectacles, marred by shouting matches, walkouts, and even police involvement. Henyard became the focal point of each gathering, turning what should have been routine discussions into platforms for personal drama. Frustration among residents mounted as critical town issues were pushed aside in favor of Henyard's increasingly bizarre outbursts. Perhaps the most alarming moment of her tenure came when she attempted to appoint an unqualified individual as police chief, an obvious power grab that sparked immediate backlash. Rather than addressing legitimate concerns, Henyard dismissed her critics, claiming they were simply jealous. This blatant deflection only deepened doubts about her leadership and reinforced the perception that she was more concerned with maintaining control than with governing effectively. Meanwhile, as rumors of corruption mounted, federal investigators launched a probe into Henyard's dual roles as Dolton's mayor and Thornton Township supervisor. Witness interviews and an ongoing investigation suggest that criminal charges could be on the horizon. While the full scope of the probe remains unclear, one thing is certain: Henyard's reign has been marked by severe public scrutiny, and the walls are rapidly closing in. In a particularly bizarre and humiliating turn, Henyard took to Facebook Live to broadcast a 90-minute tirade against her critics. Intended to portray herself as a victim amid mounting allegations, including accusations of embezzling public funds, the rant only served to further damage her already fragile public image. One resident noted that Henyard's threats to arrest anyone who opposed her were clear signs of her growing detachment from the community and its needs. The consensus among Dolton's residents is clear: Henyard has shown a complete disregard for the law, the people she was elected to serve, and basic decency. Her leadership style has transformed local politics into a chaotic theater, where her primary concern is clinging to power. She has undermined authority, appointed unqualified individuals to key positions, and used public platforms to lash out at those who challenge her. What began as a promising rise in local politics has now spiraled into a saga of scandal, self-destruction, and the very real possibility of criminal consequences. The federal investigation into Henyard's conduct is intensifying, and with each passing day, the stakes grow higher. Whether or not charges are formally filed, it is evident that Henyard has crossed a line from which there is no easy return. Her political career, once filled with potential, is now rapidly spiraling out of control, leaving the residents of Dolton to watch in disbelief as her fall from grace unfolds. For those who once believed in her promises of progress and change, the reality is now a cycle of chaos, uncertainty, and disillusionment. As the investigation continues and more details emerge, the full extent of Henyard's decline will likely be revealed, but for many in Dolton, the damage has already been done. What was once seen as an opportunity for revitalization has become a legacy defined by scandal, corruption, and a desperate struggle to salvage what little remains of her reputation. Her public displays of defiance, coupled with a blatant disregard for the rule of law, have fostered an environment of deep distrust and frustration.
We are cooperating with the state of Nevada. We are waiting to hear back from them as far as where they're at with this event.
Tiffany Henyard's grip on power in Dolton and Thornton Township is weakening by the day, yet she continues to act as if she is untouchable, treating the town like her personal kingdom, despite overwhelming evidence that she is no longer viewed as a capable leader by the majority. Henyard remains defiant, seemingly oblivious to the growing discontent around her. Recently, at a city council meeting, Henyard erupted in a dramatic outburst, apparently believing it would boost her image on social media and make her the talk of the town. However, rather than rallying support, her actions were met with widespread ridicule. Her loyal followers packed the room, cheering as she lamented the township's alleged financial instability. But the meeting took a sharp turn when it became clear that Henyard's own decisions were largely responsible for the township's financial woes. While her supporters blindly applauded, the reality of the situation became undeniable. Dolton's financial crisis had deepened under her leadership. The most shocking moment came when Henyard compared herself to former President Donald Trump, boldly declaring that she would win re-election in a landslide despite the scandals surrounding her. "I'm coming in strong. The people know the truth, and they will stand by me," she proclaimed. The room fell silent, followed by uneasy laughter, a clear sign that even those once loyal to her were beginning to question her grip on reality. Her bravado and self-importance had alienated many, leaving her increasingly isolated. Meanwhile, the township's financial situation remains dire. Bills are going unpaid, essential business cannot be conducted, and the Board of Trustees has failed to attend meetings yet. Henyard continues to present herself as a victorious leader, entirely detached from the crisis she has created. Former ally Carmen Ascent has since revealed that Henyard's rise to power was never about serving the people, but rather a carefully orchestrated political maneuver. Ascent's revelations paint a troubling picture of Henyard's true agenda, suggesting her tenure has been built on financial mismanagement and corruption from the very start. As more information emerges linking her directly to the township's financial troubles, residents are beginning to wake up to the reality of her actions, and they are not pleased. Henyard's judgment is now under intense scrutiny, not only for her mishandling of finances but also for her reckless decisions regarding law enforcement. One of her most controversial moves was appointing an unqualified candidate as police chief, a decision widely seen as a blatant power grab. When confronted about it, Henyard reacted defensively, dismissing valid concerns and refusing to listen to anyone outside her inner circle. Her combative and aggressive response to criticism only highlights the extent of her ego and her willingness to cling to power at any cost, even at the expense of the community she was elected to serve. It has become increasingly clear that Henyard's closest supporters are more interested in personal gain than in public service. They either turn a blind eye to the growing scandals or are simply indifferent to the mounting evidence of corruption and mismanagement. But for the residents of Dolton and Thornton Township, the truth is becoming impossible to ignore. As the crisis deepens, Henyard's once ironclad grip on power continues to crumble, leaving a community desperate for real leadership and accountability. The myth of Tiffany Henyard as a champion of the people is rapidly unraveling as mounting evidence of corruption, financial mismanagement, and abuse of power comes to light. What is perhaps most alarming is Henyard's complete refusal to take accountability for her actions. Her recent Facebook Live tirade, in which she compared herself to Donald Trump, is just one example of her defiant stance and unwillingness to acknowledge the growing pressure for accountability. Rather than addressing the serious concerns surrounding her leadership, she continues to double down pretending everything is fine while her moral culpability grows. The residents of Dolton and Thornton Township are waking up to the harsh reality that their leader values power above all else. The laughter that followed her Trump comparison at a recent council meeting was a stark indication of just how out of touch she has become. Her persistent defiance, refusal to resign, and blatant disregard for public dissatisfaction have only fueled residents' anger, with demands for accountability growing louder by the day. As the situation escalates, Henyard's political career is unraveling before her eyes. What once seemed like a display of strength now appears to be a desperate attempt to cling to power. But the more she defies reality and the law, the more likely it becomes that she will face the consequences of her actions. The question is no longer if she will be held accountable when, after nearly 2 years of allegations of corruption in her roles as Dolton Mayor and Thornton Township Supervisor, multiple sources now confirm that federal agents are actively interviewing witnesses. As part of a possible investigation, Henyard has become a deeply polarizing figure, and with every move she makes to consolidate power, she only seems to alienate more people. One of her latest controversial decisions, appointing an uncertified police chief, has sparked outrage among both residents and trustees, many of whom see it as yet another example of her blatant disregard for the law. Trustees are growing increasingly concerned about her repeated violations of state laws and regulations, but despite mounting criticism, Henyard remains defiant. Things took an even more absurd turn when she filed a lawsuit against the trustees for holding meetings without her, an unprecedented move that only escalated tensions further. Public gatherings, which should have been opportunities for productive discussions, have devolved into chaotic spectacles. At one recent event, residents jeered at Henyard as she left the platform, with one person shouting, "Why won't you step down? This is disgraceful." Henyard's response to calls for accountability has been consistent with her behavior throughout her tenure: deflect, deny, and refuse responsibility. When pressed about the growing disorder under her leadership, she deflected blame, claiming, "I'm not the one on anything." When questioned about an improperly registered foundation under her control, she claimed she had no idea what the foundation did or how much money it had raised, only confirming suspicions that she has been entangled in a web of increasingly dubious activities. As the FBI investigation continues, even some of Henyard's most loyal supporters are beginning to have doubts. With each passing day, her circle of allies shrinks, and the cracks in her leadership grow deeper. Her recent Facebook post, in which she defiantly declared, "They can try to tear me down, but I'm not going anywhere," was met with a wave of criticism. What was once a political scandal has now become a farce in the eyes of many residents. Henyard's arrogance, refusal to resign, and blatant disregard for the law have left many wondering just how long she can hold on to power. But the inevitability of accountability is becoming clearer. The FBI investigation is ongoing, and the question now is not whether Henyard will face the consequences, but when. As her list of scandals continues to grow, her once promising political career is now buried under layers of controversy. Yet her refusal to step down, coupled with the unwavering support of a small but vocal group of loyalists, raises concerns about just how long she can prolong the inevitable. One thing is certain: Tiffany Henyard's saga is far from over. Each new development, each new revelation of corruption and mismanagement, makes it even harder to predict how this story will ultimately unfold. The pressure is building, but Henyard's defiance suggests she will delay the inevitable as long as possible. The future of leadership in Dolton and Thornton Township remains uncertain, but residents are watching closely, waiting for the moment when Henyard can no longer evade accountability. Her political career, once filled with promise, is now defined by scandal, corruption, and chaos. The question remains: how much longer can she continue to defy the will of the people and escape the scrutiny of the law? The outcome of this